Hello, good evening. My name is Brendan Norton, and I'm here to talk to you about my ELO, which was a study on Abraham, the biblical figure. And to start off, I'll just explain how I started this. About 2 years ago, I engaged in a religious documentary project with my friend Adam, and we went around the greater, Concord area. We talked to different religious leaders of different Christian denominations. We talked to a few rabbis, and it was just a really rewarding experience, and it really started a passion for me for the three Abrahamic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And when I found out about extended learning opportunities, I decided, wow, that would be a great way to continue my interest and continue my learning. And so I talked to Mrs. Ward, and she told me to think it over, and I went to church that Sunday, and I talked to my pastor, and he said, well, Brendan, we're going to be starting a unit on Abraham in our Bible study. And I said, oh, that sounds great. I should do a project on that. And he said, sure, I'll help you with that. And that's where we are. And I guess the essential question I wanted to learn, get the answer to, was how did Abraham affect the world, and why is he such an important person? And to do that, I worked very closely with my pastor, Gary Cody, my HQT, Mr. Strickhardt, Mrs. Ward. I also gained insight from Rabbi Levi Krinsky of the Chabad Lubavitch Center in Manchester, and Hassan and Almir. Their last names escape me, but two learned Muslims from the Islamic Society of Manchester. And over the course of the last year, I suppose, some of the things I've been doing, I've done biblical studies, just going through a set of questions about the meaning of different passages in Genesis. Also, I read quite a bit over there. That's my pile of books that range from the Bible, the New King James Version, to the Quran, to some rabbinical commentaries on the Bible. Also interviewing some of the religious leaders of the different faiths, my pastor, Rabbi Levi Krinsky, Hassan and Almir. And that's how I learned. Some of the challenges I faced were in scheduling for a lot of this. I initially wanted to be able to interview the Grand Rabbi of Boston, Naftali Yehuda Horowitz, and I called him over a period of 4 months, every week. Unfortunately, very important rabbis tend to travel to Israel a lot, so I didn't actually get a chance to talk to him. But that was definitely a learning experience in figuring out my own schedule as well as theirs. Other barriers that I faced when learning about Islam, one of the interesting things is so much of the Islamic religion is intertwined with the language of Arabic, and I actually had to sit down and have a real big discussion on certain Arabic words in order to get a full understanding of the Quran and what Hassan and Almir were talking to me about. And I guess that leads me to exactly what I did learn. I'm sure all of you are at least mildly familiar with the story of Abraham. He was born in Mesopotamia, and he left the ancient city of Ur to go to Haran after his brother Haran died, same name. And then God called him out and said, go to a land that I will show you. And over the course of the next few decades, Abraham passed many trials and tribulations on his walk of faith with God. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, I'm sure everyone's heard of that, the binding of Isaac, many things. And through the different religious perspectives, I was also able to learn some extra tidbits that you wouldn't exactly find in the Bible. One very interesting story from Muslim tradition is that, and this is also somewhat parallel to Jewish tradition, Abraham's father, Terah, was an idol maker. And one day, Terah decided to leave Abraham in charge of his idol shop. And Abraham, at this point, realizing that there's only one God, decides, I'm not really going to take kindly to these idols here. So he went and he destroyed all the idols in the shop. And he took the hammer that he had destroyed them with and put them in the hand of the largest idol. His father came back after whatever it was he was doing and looked at his completely destroyed shop and said, Abraham, my God, what did you do? Everything was fine. Well, what happened? And Abraham said, well, I mean, the big one got angry at the little one, and they got in a big fight and everything. Everybody, I guess, well, you know how idols are. And Abraham's father said, that's absolutely ridiculous. Idols can't do anything. They have no power. Exactly. And that was the point Abraham was trying to make. However, the townsfolk and Abraham's father as well as the king Nimrod didn't take quite kindly to this, and so they decided to throw him into a giant fire. They spent days and days building this gigantic fire that was so hot that they actually had to build a special catapult to fling Abraham into the fire. And as Abraham was being flung into the fire, the angel Gabriel came and said to Abraham, Abraham, you look like you're in kind of a tight spot. Is there anything I can do to help you? No, Gabriel, everything's fine. I will take my peace with the Lord will help me. Okay, so be it. Then the angel Michael came and said, Abraham, I mean, you're getting pretty close to that fire. You're not going to be flying around forever. Is there anything I can do to help you? No, I'm gonna put my faith in the Lord. Everything will be okay. All right. And finally, when Abraham landed in the fire, much to his amazement, God had turned it into just the perfect temperature. So perfect, in fact, that Abraham wound up spending, I think, an entire day just kind of meandering through the fire, praying and whatnot, and emerged unharmed. Now, that's a little bit of a stretch as far as what I'm sure most of you are willing to believe. But I think one of the most important things that I learned, and you can take it on faith, is faith. I think the important thing about Abraham as a character in the Bible or the Quran or just in history is that more than any other person I've ever had the pleasure to study, he exemplifies faith. And that is nowhere made more clear than in the binding of Isaac. After many years of sojourning through the land of Canaan, God told Abraham, Abraham, I want you to take your son, your only son, and I want you to sacrifice him on my mountain. Now, this must have been a pretty big shock to Abraham. I mean, God had promised him the land of Canaan, promised him endless descendants, and promised him a son. And now God was saying, Abraham, that which I have given to you, I want you to give back. And that must have been just a tremendous feeling, maybe of despair, maybe of pressure, I don't know. But Abraham got up in the morning, he took his son to the mountain, and he offered him up to God. Now God, being merciful as he is, put a ram in place of Isaac and told Abraham to hold his hand and to not harm Isaac. And I think a lot of the time in our secular world, we tend to see a story like that and say, wow, God is just, he's not a nice guy. Who would ask somebody to do that? But I think you have to look beyond your initial perception and really look into the deep meaning and see that God was asking Abraham to sacrifice his most precious thing for God, to have the utmost trust that all these promises had been made, that he would have the land of Canaan, that he would have endless descendants, and now he just had to put his feet to those promises to say, you know, God will save my son, maybe he'll be resurrected, everything will work out, whatever was going through his mind, but that everything would be okay, and to trust in the Lord. And I think that's one of the most important things I've learned throughout my experience. Now, I guess some of the things that were hard, that was one of the questions that I was supposed to talk about, but I have to say, I wouldn't say the experience was particularly hard or easy. I think it was just fun. It was very interesting. It's something I love to do, learning about the Bible, learning about God, all these types of things. And there were some difficulties in scheduling all this language, but all in all, it was just a great experience. I guess I was surprised just at how much there was to know about Abraham. All those books right there talk about him in depth. I could probably find many more volumes to talk about Abraham, many more things to say. And I guess I wish that I could have started this a year earlier, because there is just so much to learn. I'd really like to continue my study. And the answer to that essential question, why is Abraham so important? Why did he have such a big impact in the world? I'm going to let Rabbi Levi Krinsky answer.
My computer messed up.
Or not.
You keep talking.
Well, I can summarize what he says. Perhaps we'll be able to see the video. But Abraham, as a historical figure, is the founder of monotheism, the belief that there is only one God. That has had tremendous impact on the world, with the dominance of the Judeo-Christian Islamic religions across the world. Currently, there are about 4 billion adherents of those three faiths combined, and I think that's a pretty big accomplishment for any patriarch or what have you. And once again, I think the most important thing is that faith aspect, and I think in our increasingly secular society that God should have a place in the world and that we should be able to put some faith in him, because when times are tough, if you have no one to turn to, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, so to speak. And any questions? Bab?
Brendan, very good, thank you. You mentioned faith several times, and it reminds me of a passage in the Christian Bible, Hebrews, says that Abraham believed and it was accounted to him as righteousness. Can you tell us how this project has stirred your faith, or what it has done for your faith?
Yeah. Well, I'm a Christian, and I started going to church about a year ago, and going through, I guess, the process of becoming more Christian, aligning myself with my faith. But Abraham, learning about him has been a real personal thing for me, connecting with a figure who I believe very profoundly in, and to see the trials that he had to go through. I mean, the Bible doesn't paint Abraham as a perfect figure. He had fear, he lied, he sort of cheated on his wife, kind of, sort of, things of that nature. And to see that even though these things may have happened, even though he wasn't perfect, he still was able to have enough faith in God, still able to have a faith that's so strong it's almost akin to courage to be able to do the things he did. And that has really given me a serious life example of how I want to lead my life. Bruce?
Do you feel like well, let me think how I want to word this. I feel like there's a lot of talk today on how closely those three religions are, and that sometimes, there's so much going on in the world that makes people feel like those religions aren't connected. Do you feel like the study that you did would be powerful in any way for more people to understand, like how closely all three religions are linked, for people to be able to get along and just understand the religions?
I think all three religions have some serious theological reservations about each other. I mean, Judaism does not accept Jesus Christ as the Messiah. Islam does not accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God, things of that nature. Christianity and Judaism don't accept Muhammad as a prophet, all these things. But I think one of the beautiful things about Abraham, once again, is he also bridges that gap, so to speak, in that they're called the Abrahamic religions because they all trace their lineage back through Abraham. They all believe in one God. They all have a relatively similar ethical system, and in some aspects, similar theological beliefs. I don't think that we're ever going to get to the point where we're not going to disagree. I mean, religions make exclusivist claims about exclusive ideas, but I think that the relationship between the three religions can be much better because they have so much in common and because of that Abrahamic tradition that they all have. Mr. Stricker?
How's it all going to end up?
Well, as a Christian, the way I believe it's going to end up is that Jesus is going to return at the end of days, and that everyone will be judged accordingly. And that kind of goes back to the promise that God made Abraham in Genesis, that all the nations of the earth would be blessed through Abraham. And if you trace the lineage back, Jesus Christ goes to Abraham. So that's my belief of how everything will end in the end.
How do the other two religions relate to that?
The other two religions, Judaism, since they don't accept Jesus as a Messiah, they're still waiting for a Messiah to come and redeem the people of Israel. Islam believes that Jesus also will come back. They also believe that he'll be a figure called the Mahdi will return before him to announce his coming and bring everybody under the banner of Islam.
Brendan, I think we're good. I just don't know if I started it in the right place.
Oh, Ms. Lam?
I was just gonna ask, is there one book out of those multiples that you read that kind of do connect the three of those directly? And if there isn't, are you gonna be writing one?
I don't know if I'm gonna throw my forte into book writing just yet. I guess out of those books right there, probably the Quran itself makes a lot of references to Judaism and Christianity. Not all of them are positive because of those different theological beliefs. But I think a general book on Abraham, not one of those over there, would probably do it. Or just a general religion book to show the similarities between them.
loud as it goes.
It was something that was a novelty, like revolutionary, here conviction, and was driven. Thousands of years later, she wasn't there crazy. Another question is, in Genesis 12:13.
Yeah, it goes on for a little while.
Sorry, the volume wasn't working very well.
Any final questions? Oh, Ross?
Yeah,
Yeah.
given the religious nature of your project,
Yeah.
did you find that any hurdles that maybe didn't occur for some of the other students you had to face, and how did you approach those and get past them? It seems like a very delicate situation. We don't normally hear a lot of religion in school.
Yeah.
obviously.
I didn't encounter any issues as far as with administration or the school goes, as far as a separation of church and state or anything like that. I think one of the, as you put it, delicate, I had to be delicate in some of the interviews talking about certain things. I think there's a lot of misperceptions on all three ends of the aisle about the different religions and phrasing questions in a way that wouldn't be offensive and respects the integrity of people's beliefs.
I'd like to thank, well, actually, I'll let you thank your highly qualified teacher.
Oh, yeah, I'd really like to thank Mr. Strickard over here in the red. He really helped me out. I love you.